folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you. Oh boy, with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Welcome to the show. Glad to see you here tonight.
As always, thank you for allowing me to come here again. And greetings and blessings to all y'all who watch this video. And we always hope that you're doing the best you can in these weird times. And thank you for showing up and listening.
That's right. That's right. Let's see. We got a lot of people in the chat tonight. I want a big shout out to everybody. Boy, oh boy, we got Nina the Mystic's in the house. She will be going live with the Hump Day message that'd be tomorrow as usual on the Hump Day message. There you go. There's your link, everybody. Remember, go and sub to her new channel. So go over there and get some subbing in. Don't forget to hook up with her and on that channel, get your message read, and then go over to Rumble. She's got a new channel over there. And we got Scotty Boy is in the house. He's already subbed. Good deal. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Lucky Stone, thank you for being here. Good to see you're back at work. Even though you hate working nights, well, that's just the way it goes. Welcome to the world we live in. There's Nina's channel on Rumble. Go hook up with that. Get on Rumble. I got to get over there too. Here you go. Travis is in the house. Travis the architect is in the house tonight. We got also, let's see, who else is here? Elderberry's in the house. He's doing chores, and he will be back soon. He had to go out and help a cardinal get out of the pen, and he was tired. Almost was chicken feed, but he saved him. How nice that is. Well, anyway, back to our show and what we're going to be talking about tonight. You got some good stories for us tonight, so everybody stick around till later and hear the good stories. But for tonight, guess what we're talking about? And you can see it in the background here. Prehistoric Indian burial mounds. Now, we touched on this subject before with the Serpent Mound. And David, you've been there to the Serpent Mound, you lucky dog.
Yeah, and I really want to go back and spend more time. We were in a hurry and I got a chance to walk all the way around the path, and get all the way back around. And it's, they've got a 2-story tower there that you can walk up the stairs and view out over the mound. And I gotta say, it's really interesting. And as me and another elderly gentleman, as we stood there on the path looking at the thing, said, "Where did they get all the dirt?"
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you where they got the dirt from here in a second. But David, if you get the chance, I want you to do some investigating for us here on the channel. And are you close to any of these places here? This is Georgia, and here are the sites for all these Indian burial mounds that are in Yazoo, Indiana. Have you ever heard of Yazoo?
Can you zoom in for me? No, I mean the whole page.
No.
Okay.
No, I cannot.
Okay.
They have the Indian Grave Gap, the Notchee Indian Mound, the Iwatha Indian Mounds State Park. We got the Yazoo Indian Cemetery, the Yazoo Indian Mounds.
Now you're in North Georgia.
Okay. Atlanta, South Georgia, here's South. Tinsley Mill Ruins, the Indian Springs Cemetery, the Old Indian Cemetery, the Rock Eagle Effigy Mound,
I think I've been to Rock Eagle, but go ahead.
And then there's the Omugi Indian Mounds National Park. Yeah, Okmulgee. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So, so there's
I'm still further south.
Okay, we got the Indian Mound Church Cemetery, the Indian Mound that's over by the coast, Indian Mound Cottage. We got the Indian Mound Cemetery.
Now go west for me. Now you're into Florida.
The Milky Mounds Archaeological, and the
Kolomoki.
Kamoki.
Now
That's it.
see, that's due west of me. I'd be right on the edge of the map area right now from Kolomoki. And I've been there several times, and I've been planning on, this is the time of year to go. So I would really like to go over there now.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And do some video. I've got pictures of what I took years ago, but now, I'd really like to do some video. It's an interesting place.
Yes, Kolomoki Mounds Archaeological Area, historical marker. There's 23 photos of it. And like I said, that would be cool if you could go there and check it out. It might be close to you, and share it with all of us. I'll send you on this.
I intend to. I want to go back there. So yes.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, it's a big, tall place. Yep. I've been up there, and you sit up there at sunset and watch the sun go down in the west. Like it looks like that from up there when the sun goes down in the evening.
Cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting place, and it's got some strange vibes. Don't know how else to put it. Got some strange vibes.
Wow. Way cool. Yeah, go there, check it out for us. Maybe take some pictures. Be kind of a little adventure for all of us to take us along. Paradox
Absolutely.
in the house. Good to see you. Yes, Scotty boy, I hope this summer that we all get to go on some good adventures and share things. I'm planning on some more adventures myself, and and the big thing is to get out there and really experience. Let's do our own investigation. There's stuff right in our own backyards that we probably just missed. Why don't we just go out there and check it out ourselves, right?
Yep. And now, if you were to take that map and go south into Florida, just go straight south and zoom in, and there in Florida are some ancient hills and stuff. I mean, Kolomoki is not really ancient. It's a 1,500-year-old, but they've got some stuff that's like prehistoric, and it's up there in the Panhandle. Go east a little more. There's nothing showing up.
No.
Wow, that's interesting. Because down there to the east of where you're at right now, there's a bunch of stuff that's like almost due south of me into Florida along the rivers down there. They found all kinds of prehistoric stuff. I mean, just all kinds of prehistoric stuff. East of Tallahassee, around Monticello and Madison, and places in there in south. They've been finding stuff in the rivers just all over the place.
Oh yeah, here we go. This is Florida.
Where are you at in Florida? Oh, you're in the south. Oh, that's in Tampa area.
Well, that's the only one that I can find.
Really? You zoomed into there's nothing in the Panhandle up there? There's all kinds of stuff, ancient stuff. Right there. Just zoom in there. There's all kinds of, see that darker green area? There's all kinds of stuff in that national forest and the wetland in there.
Oh, the Apalachicola National Forest. Yeah, I imagine it is. But it doesn't show up.
And east of there, even more. Go east. Yep. Keep going. Go on the other side of Tallahassee.
Nothing.
Oh, wait. Now go north. There's nothing in there?
It doesn't show up on here. I don't know why.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Maybe I got to Google it differently. I don't know.
Well, I know that there are some ancient sites that I was, Googling around and just zooming in. I was looking for something else and I went, wait a minute, there's ancient sites down here. I mean, I live an hour away and I've never been to these things. Well, what the dickens?
Here you go. There we go. Here's a map of it all.
Ancient sites in Panhandle.
Yeah.
But so my intention is that me and Doug are going to take, a ride because there are a couple of rivers down there I'd like to go get on. And it's been a year since my back operation, and I'm going to force myself to get out more. I just need to, even if it's just riding to some place like that. And, spending a couple hours and coming home, yeah. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine today and I said, I told her, I said, the one thing that I've got to look forward to in this life is adventures, and it's up to me to go have them.
That's right. That's right. Here's some places I can see. I can't blow it up. It says Walton, Love Mounds, Jackson, Turtle Mound, Crystal River, Phillip Bay, Warm Mineral, Mound Key, and Miami Circle. Those are some of the ones I can't find a better. I just won't show me anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't investigate this more, but anyway, I looked at some of this, and there are sites. I guess if you live in Florida, you're going to have to investigate yourself. If you do check stuff out, let me know. Send me pictures. Send me an email. Patricia says it is in Florida that you were talking about. Please tell us the names of the sites. I'm trying to, but it's not really giving me much, except this one, Indian Burial Mounds, and this one here is in St. Petersburg, Florida. But anyway, the point is, go out and do a little investigation yourself. If you live in Florida, check it out. Hey, F Kitty. Hello. Like I said, I got a whole crew of you. Go right out there and check things out. We're gonna do some investigating ourselves. That's the only way to get it done, right? The correct way, anyway. Okay, so where are we going with this? I gotta stop this. Stop sharing. But anyway, the point is, Indian mounds. We find them especially all over the eastern side of the United States. Ohio, Kentucky, a lot of them in Wisconsin, Illinois, tons of them everywhere. Let's see. I'm going to go up here. It seemed like the ones that popped up the most were in areas of like Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, places like that. We're going to start sharing here. There we go. Indian burial mounds. And they were talking about how these are 1,500 to 2,000 years old. I can't see the rest of the writing, but, we know they're old. Okay. Prehistoric Indian burial mound constructed around 100 BC, AD 400 for the burial of a high status member of an unknown local tribe group. An associated village site lies across the highway to the southwest. And this was in Mississippi. Here's a picture of one of the mounds, and you see how big they are, right?
And what town?
I don't know what this one is. Sorry, I didn't get the name of it.
Where?
Oh, the last one said Mississippi, and I imagine that's where this one is too, somewhere.
Okay.
But it's a big mound. It's just the idea is to show you how big these mounds are on a flat plane. You see everything around it is flat. And all of a sudden, they built this giant hill here. For what reason, right? Where did they get the dirt? Did you know that one of these mounds, like this size, would take 27 miles worth of dump trucks to make a mound like that? You line dump trucks butt to butt for 27 miles, and you could make this one mound. Go figure. Now, where did the Indians get these mounds, and how did they build such a huge mound in the middle of nowhere? And where did they get the building materials? Now, they've done some investigating with some of these mounds, and guess what they found? They found that the dirt in these mounds has come from all over the United States, not just in that area. The dirt was brought in from different places. Can you believe that?
Yeah, actually, I can.
So,
I'm that kind of, conspiracy theorist.
Well, and that's the thing. So the idea is, they built these mounds like the Serpent Mound here. For what was the purpose of them building this mound and then bringing dirt in from all over the country?
And how did they get it there?
Now, they tell us. Well, they didn't have horses. So you're doing it all by hand. And they're saying that these mounds were built by people with, baskets full of dirt, bringing hundreds of baskets of dirt to make a mound. Like this. They're bringing hundreds of baskets of dirt from all over the place, piling it up here, and then they're burying their dead inside this mound. Now, there has been these mounds have been excavated, and some of them do have people in them, believe it or not. So the question is what was the point? Why were they doing this? Who did this? Did the Indians, take baskets after basket after basket and bring it along and build this giant hill in the middle of nowhere? Or was it somewhere? Was this a city at one time? Now that might make a little more sense. F. Kitty says many of the mounds were cities and they were burial mounds. The geoglyphs are burial ceremonial. And then she also says, I believe that is the one they found a layer of crystals, but no bodies. Interesting. And that is the thing. Now, they found things that were made of copper. They found freshwater pearls, copper balls, made into necklaces. The thing is in these mounds, they were finding things that the Indians, some of them did use and some of them didn't use. Now, I have some old books. You know how I love my old books. My first old book talks about, I'm going to read about this one here. At Cincinnati, there is a barrow or mound of human bones situated exactly on the edge of a bank that overlooks the lower town. The principal street leading from the water is cut through it and exposes a strata of remains to every person passing by. Seven tiers of skeletons lay plainly in sight where the barrows have carved away from the of it being undermined. Among the earth thus falls down and found several stone hatchets, pieces of pottery, and a flute made of great bone of a human leg. This is a very curious instrument with beautifully carved figures representing birds, squirrels, and small animals, with perforated holes in the old German manner, which they, when breathed into, emanate tones of great melody. Among the modern Indians, no such instrument, this is where I'm going with this though. Among the modern Indians, no such instrument has ever been found. At the time when the street was open, there through this barrow of the dead, a great variety of interesting, valuable relics were brought to light, among which were human double teeth, which on a moderate calculation bespoke men, as large again as the present race. Also some brass rings, which were considered exceptionally curious, and an instant where a similar one before mentioned in this work, iron rings, as we have before mentioned, were anciently used among the Britons before Christian era as money. let's see. So what it's trying to tell us is, well, they're finding stuff that the Indians didn't use. Now, that makes me curious because I looked up articles and I said, well, let's investigate this. And you can see here's the mounds. They were grown up. They had trees on them when man showed up, the white man. Men, would come far and wide and they see these mounds. They'd sit up on top because everything's flat and they could use this as a lookout place, They had no idea what a lot of these were for. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second and I'm going to get rid of this. And then, yeah, okay. I'm going to share again. Hang on. I'm going to try to prove my point here. We're going to go take a look at the Iroquois. And it says here, it is their custom to bury their dead with their best clothes and various implements that they had been in the habit of using whilst living. If it was a warrior that they were preparing for burial, they placed his tomahawk by his side and his knife and his shield, with the hunter his bow and arrows and implements for cooking his food, with the woman their kettles and cooking apparatuses, and also food for all. Tobacco was deposited in every grave to smoke with, in the Indians' idea of felicity in the body and out of it. And in this there was not much difference, as one might wish, between them and the gentlemen of parlor. Among the Iroquois and many other Indian nations, it was the custom to place the dead upon scaffolds built for the purpose from tree to tree or within a temporary enclosure, and underneath a fire was kept burning for several days. We've known incidents of persons reviving after they were supposed dead. They did not dispose of spirit. They haven't. Okay, so my point with this whole thing is, and there's some other spots up here where they were talking about how they would burn their belongings and their teepee or their hut or whatever it was, or maybe that was in no, it wasn't this. Traditions, funeral traditions. They were talking about how people had their own traditions here, but when we look back at this, what did they say? They put them on scaffolding or they burnt them. Now, why would you go through all that effort to build mounds and then some way change your culture to say, no, we're not going to build mounds no more. We're just going to put them on some poles between two trees and then burn their belongings? Answer me that.
Well, it's because they had a major cultural change, obviously. I stopped in. I've been to Kolomoki Mountain several times.
Yeah.
For example, you talk about where the dirt comes from. There is a trench beside and behind that mound.
Yeah.
So and they know where the dirt came from. Yeah. They scooped it out right behind the mound, which was very convenient, and piled it up. And there are other burial mounds around the area. In fact, one of the things they did back, I think, in the 50s was the archaeologists cut one of the mounds in half at Kolomoki, and they built a museum over the mound after they cut it open, and they removed the bones and reburied them somewhere. They didn't say where, but they have replicas of the bones and how they were exactly how they were laid out. So you go into the museum and into the back there, and you can see you're inside the mound. So it's very interesting. But the big mound, it is thought, who's buried in it? Well, they didn't see anybody. And I think Kolomoki, for example, the mound was for ceremony, not necessarily for burying somebody. But the little mounds all around the big mound, there are, they've got people in them, or they've done, studies. So it's like, that makes sense. You got a 3-foot mound, not a 20-foot mound.
Yes. Oh yeah. Well, and that's the thing. You got to wonder what happened in their culture that changed a lot of this. When they were building mounds, to all of a sudden the Indians of the day, none of these Indians were building mounds anymore. They were all doing different things. They would burn their dead. They would, put them up. We read about a lot of these ways they would do it. They would put them on rafts and put them out on the water and burn the raft, or they would come back and get their bone. They would wait till the sun dried everything up, and then they would come back and get their bones, or things like that. But nowhere ever have I read that they would, this tribe here would dig a big pit and they make a big mound and they bury their dead in there and blah, 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 right? Never heard of that. Have you?
No. But one of, just to mention, Kolomoki and that area over there, the Kolomoki Indians, that's the reason for the name, is right on the Apalachicola River, and not just too far from it is Alabama. And there are other folks and Indians over there, the Choctaw and folks anyway. But they date the mounds back to about 12 to 1300 years ago. They don't date the mounds to be ancient. Yeah. They're old, but they're not ancient. They're not 2,000 or 3,000 years old. And so I've kind of scratched my head and asked, well, the next time I go over, I'm going to look at the artifacts and stuff and kind of ask the question by looking around at what's there as to how did they arrive at that number?
Well, and see, that's what gets me wondering, because the more I look into this, the more I think somebody's kind of pulling the wool over our eyes on this. Now go with me on this.
I agree.
Yeah. So I bought this book here. It's old, and it's called Mounds of the Mississippi Valley. It's from, let's see, what year is this one? It's old. You got to be really careful with it because it's falling apart. And let's see, when is it? This one is Oof, it's falling apart. It's from the late 1800s. I know that. But anyway, yeah, it's got to be from 1894. There you go, 1894. So here's what they have to say. We're going to reel back the time, everybody. We're going to go back to when this guy wrote his book on Indian mounds and see what he has to say. He says, this conclusion together with, I'm going to skip to, all this stuff. And he says, he looks at the rude knife to the carved and polished gorget that they may have and been taken from the innermost recesses of the mound or picked up on the surface amid the debris of a recent Indian village. And the most experienced archaeologists, if called upon to decide as if their origin, would have to acknowledge himself as at fault. Nor does the similarity stop the objects made of stone. On the contrary. And then he goes on about the same thing, like, yeah, they found these Indian relics around the mounds or maybe on the mounds or buried, within the mounds, on the surface area. And then they said, well, that's got to be the Indians. They can't be ancient, right? Because, well, we found some arrowheads there. You see what I'm saying? Then he goes on, this conclusion together with the origin of these structures is neither new nor original, and yet in spite of the simple explanation it gives of the mound, the question, or perhaps it might be more correct to say, on the account of this very simple simplicity, it has made its way but slowly. It seems difficult to account for this fact except on the ground that those who have written upon this subject and who have, to a certain extent, molded public opinion have approached it from one side only. Yeah, exactly. They have usually belonged to the class of practical explorers and have brought to the investigation a certain number of facts, chiefly cumulative in character, but they have not, as a rule, been possessed of that measure of historical information which is necessary to a correct interpretation of these facts. Being thus, as it were, but half prepared for the work, they have not unfrequently given too much play to the imagination and carried their theories much farther than the facts would warrant. Impressed with the size and character of these remains, or led astray by certain resemblances, fancied or real, to similar objects elsewhere, they have used these as a basis for reconstructing a phase of civilization to which, in point of religious, artistic, and political development, they have declared the Indian to have been unequal. From these extreme views, there has always been more or less dissent. And then it says the ancient monuments of the Mississippi Valley makes no distinction in these remains, but speaks of the mound builders as an extinct race. You get that? An extinct race, meaning a whole different civilization, and contrast their progress in the arts with a low condition of the modern Indians, is obliged in this subsequent publication to modify his views and draw a line of demarcation between the earthworks of western New York and those found in the southern Ohio Valley, especially those which he styles religious or sacred enclosures. The former of these, he thinks, were erected by the recent Indians, and he supports this view by a chain of reasoning that is believed to be unanswerable. In his Institute of Comparison between the relics of art and traces of occupancy found within them, and those which mark the sites of towns and forts that are known to have been occupied by the Indians, and pronounces them to be identical to this powerful argument drawn from what may not inaptly be termed the facts of the mound. He adds very conspicuous notes as to the origin and the use of such structures among the people of all ages and countries, though of course with special reference to those that are known to have been erected by the American Indians. In this historical retrospect, he permits the facts to speak for themselves with most commendable in particularly have, even though he frankly admits they led to the conclusion little anticipated when he started on the trip of exploration, that the earthworks of western New York were erected by the Iroquois or their western neighbors, and do not possess an antiquity going far back as the discovery. To this conclusion, so far as it goes, I certainly do not object. Unfortunately, however, it stops short of the mark, and this is more to be regretted, as much as it is believed that the line of argument by which he himself convinced himself that the defensive works of the western New York were erected by the modern Indians would, if it had been applied to the earthworks of the Mississippi Valley of every kind whatsoever, to the so-called sacred enclosures, not less than to the hill forts, had led him to precisely the same conclusion. So he's basically saying one Indian built some of these, like you said, they built them maybe, 1,000 years ago or 1,500 years ago. And then he's saying, well, then you got the ones down by Mississippi, and they're saying, well, they're exactly the same. They're exactly, because, we found some Indian relics there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But he's saying they're not. They're two different things. The Indians up north are building this little mound kind of thing, and they put some dead bodies in there. Okay, great. But then you got the ones in Mississippi, which made these gigantic, huge mountains, literally. And, they found a few arrowheads, and, well, they're all the same. They were all made at the same time. But now the Indians don't make mounds anymore. They haven't made mounds for 1,000 years. They just quit one day. Now, that makes no sense. You'd think some of them would have kept doing something on that order. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know what? Let's think about what we've talked about with the Mayan and so forth down in South America.
Yeah.
Okay. And how they just one day walked away from building temples.
Yeah. Well, that's
you know what I mean? And
yes.
so, but here's my point, though. If you look at it from a straight line point of view, the mound builders, the Mississippians, were like almost due north of, where they're building these temples in South America. In Mexico.
Yeah.
So, which to me is a little interesting, by the way, but I think some of the mounds are much older. I really do. Yeah. And the fact that they found dirt from other places, what does that suggest? People back in the day didn't have horses, so they claim, right? Hey, Max. So imagine, where was that mound? That had the one that had all the different types in it?
I think that was in the Ohio Valley somewhere.
Yeah, okay. So, but imagine, living here in South Georgia, I'm going to take some dirt to Ohio and I'm going to carry it in a basket. That makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
There's got to be, they had baskets and they carried the dirt from, There's something else going on. Now, I don't disagree with the fact that there were different dirts. I disagree with the fact that they carried it in baskets without horses or any kind of, they may have carried it, but there's something else going on.
Well, and that's the thing. How did they get the dirt from one place to the other? They're testing this dirt and they're saying, hey, this dirt didn't come from here. I mean, that's a fact. So,
but see, I want to go back myself because I believe there were giants in those days.
Well, we're getting there.
And so anyway, but I'm going to cheat a little bit. And my humble opinion for years has been that the help that they had, could have been alien, literally, but in a sort of a more practical sense, because they found ancient giant bones that I think some of them kind of helped the Native Americans, because some of the legends talk about the ancient peoples, before the Native American, what we think of now, and they were bigger, stronger. They were, some of these folks were 30 foot tall. They have found bones that Smithsonian's been hiding, and destroying. Yeah. So, but there's evidence of these really tall beings. Imagine a 35 foot tall, being, and how much they could carry on their back and how quickly they could travel.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, 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 boom. They're like, what? And they're in another state. So, but, little tiny humans. So from a practical standpoint, if you don't want to bring in aliens and spaceships, it would be giants. No, okay, I'm done.
F. Kitty says many of the tribes claim the horses were native before the Spanish. That could be, and it couldn't be. Nobody knows, because you know, nobody was here to really document it. And how are you going to prove? I mean, think of it. If you're an Indian and you're living in, say, like Kansas, how do you know that the horse that you got wasn't from the Spanish 100 years before? I mean, 100 years, people can't place things, especially if you don't have written record. I mean, that's a hard one, you know.
But even the Native American stories talk about how the horse was the first animal to the Native Americans to be brought in.
Yeah.
That wasn't an animal that was already here, like the beaver and the hawk, and you know, but that when horse got here, it became, you know, important. You know, as we've read the horse card a few times over the years, but but horse wasn't here, and because the legends would not claim that we were so grateful that they brought the horse, you know. But now in ancient times, they found, but this is like prehistoric, they have found remnants of like these little ponies. And that was a long time ago.
Yes. Oh, I know. I totally agree with you. You know, so we don't know, you know, what was going on. But anyway, I want to finish this up real quick. He goes on to say, this is an unfortunate, but under the circumstances, an unavoidable, and it will unquestionably cause our conclusion to lack somewhat of the force of scientific demonstration. He goes on, in all human probability, it will never be known who built these mounds, in the same sense as which it will never be known who built Westminster Abbey. But if it can be demonstrated that the people who erected them were in the same Neolithic stage of civilization that the Indians are known to have attained, and if further it can be shown in undoubted historic authority that these Indians built both mounds and earthworks which differ in degree but not in kind from similar structures that are assumed to have been assumed, don't make an ass out of me and assume things, to have been the work of an extinct people whom we have called the mound builders, then it must be acknowledged that a strong argument is made out of the favor of identity of the origin of these two systems of works. To reject its conclusion without some positive evidence to the contrary would involve a great and absurdly positive evidence to the contrary, okay, as it would be to maintain, supposing all record of the fact to be lost, that Westminster Abbey was built by a people belonging to a different race from which it is known formerly to have lived in London, and for no better reason than because the English of today have ceased to build such abbeys, which is probably, you know, he's got a good point there. He realizes that the Indians of the day, you know, may or may have not built them, but maybe a culture who is, you know, a different culture. That
I would agree with that. You know, they sort of have a tendency to, and it may be this way, but that I believe that the mound builders were a different culture, or I don't want to say a subspecies. It might have been a higher species. You know, like they were taller, they were 12 feet tall, or, you know, or something like that. And that they were the mound builders, you know, not the normal Native American that's, you know, 5.5 feet tall, you know, and, you know, from the plains. You know, I do think that they were separate peoples.
Yes, yes. Well, like I read in the beginning, that one in Ohio where they said with 2 rows of teeth, you know,
right?
So you're you know, you start looking at that and going, 2 rows of teeth. What do you mean? Let's see. And I got another excerpt from here to which made a buffalo deer. Let's see. Okay, that's the Aztec tribes. Go on. I'm trying to find that one. Okay. What's for shores is in the book. No, like say that is inhabited by white people. Oh, okay. So here, like the Shawnee tribe of Indians, this is going to prove your point. The Shawnee tribe of Indians now live in Ohio, once lived on the Susquehanna River in West Florida, near the shores of the southwest end of the Gulf of Mexico. Among these Indians, say Mr. Aftwater, that there is a tradition that Florida had once been inhabited by white people who had the use of iron tools. Their oldest Indians say when children, they had often heard it spoken of by the old people of the tribe. The ancient stumps of trees covered with earth were frequently found, which had been cut down by edged tools. And that whoever they were, or from wherever country they may have originated, the account as given by Moore, the geographer of the subterranean wall found in North Carolina, goes far, very far, to show that they had the knowledge of iron ore and consequently knew how to work it, or they could not have had iron tools, as the Shawnee Indians relate. And then it goes on with more accounts. So, could have there been another race? Could have there been people with more technology at some point in time that, and you're right, maybe there were horses and the white people controlled the horses. And maybe if the Indians wiped out, say you were the white man and you had horses to do the work and haul the dirt and make the mounds, etc., etc., etc. Well, maybe if the Indians attacked you, they killed all the horses and all the white people. And then hundreds of years later, there's no trace of you. Right?
Yeah, but it just seems like events like that would be in the legends. And they're not.
Well,
and I mean, from all different cultures, there's nothing in the legends.
Yeah.
Here, let me bring something to, though. There's more evidence that what if the Vikings made it all the way to Florida?
They could have. They could,
or South Carolina, because and they knew about such things, and they made iron tools, and they had axes already when they if they showed up. So yes. I would say, because there's a lot more information that but here's the thing, the Vikings did not bring horses.
No.
They had open boats, and by golly, I just can't imagine how those were some hardy folks. I watched a documentary the other day on the boats that they made and how they made them, and the different lengths and so forth. That I cannot imagine going through the open sea in one of them boats. You talk about some brave people and hardy. Oh my God, to be it's one thing to be out in an open, storm just on land, but to be in the ocean, but anyway, so, but there's a lot more stuff coming out that, what about the Vikings, that 2,000 years ago, and they were traveling all over the place, and Leif Erikson and some of his buddies, and they made it to Greenland and to up around Maine, and so what, they couldn't have come down the coast?
Well, and that's exactly it too. They always say that the Celtic people, who were an ocean-faring people, may have came to the Americas, and we read a story about Indian tribe who spoke Celtic in one of the
Celtic.
books. Celtic, yeah. Remember, and they spoke Celtic, and the one trapper or whatever he was, he stayed with them because they spoke his language.
Yeah, he was like, "How do you know this language?"
Yeah, so it just,
He was very surprised. I remember that. Yep.
I remember that one. So it just makes you wonder, how long have people really been coming here? Could a boat washed up on shore? Could somebody been an explorer just like Coronado or De Soto and said, we're going to follow this river as far as it'll go, and then we're going to explore some more? And well, then they made it so far into the interior, they just gave up and said, well, we're going to stay here. It's too far to go back now.
Yeah, well, down here in Florida, Alabama, Georgia is the De Soto Trail, where Fernando De Soto, they got De Soto Park and this and that, So and yeah, that was the Spanish, and that was later, but they covered up. Years ago, I was doing some research on the Gulf of Mexico, and it was around the time of the Gulf spill, the oil spill. And there was about some a group of oystermen and shrimpers down along Apalachicola Bay and down in that area. And the Apalachicola River comes right on up into Georgia, then is the demarcation between Alabama and Georgia for a long way. And not only that, but the Flint River, which used to have steamboats way back in the day, that goes all the way up to southern Atlanta and Jonesboro area. It's really small up there, but but these rivers were traveled by all kinds of folks, for a bunch of years. So, but what they did was they had some really strange channel markers all along the Gulf, all the way over to Louisiana. And that they said that they had strange Egyptian hieroglyphs on those channel markers. And then that some of the guys that we talked to down there said, it was like all of a sudden there were people out in the bay, and they pulled them up. And so all along the Gulf Coast, whoever it was took up all of the remnants of what those posts were. But all the locals down there in Apalachicola, I used to know a few people, and they'd go sailing and all that kind of stuff along the coast, and they go, our old channel markers are gone, the one with the stuff on it, and they go, what happened to it? Yeah. So, but anyway, so fishermen and crabbers and oystermen who've been using these landmarks for years are suddenly gone.
Yeah.
But it was my point is that, so what if during the expanding Earth, Europe and Africa was a lot closer to the United States 2,000 or 3,000 years ago? So it would have been easier to cross.
That's right.
With that said, though, there's kind of sort of, what they found Egyptian stuff in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
So did the Egyptians get here?
Possibly.
I mean, did they actually make it? But what used to be along the coast of Florida is no longer there, but there was proof. I was surprised back in the day before any of this come up. They were like, they were talking about how their most famous channel marker was gone. And I was like, well, we were sitting having lunch one day, and I was like, what are you talking about? And they explained it to me, and I was like, oh, holy crap, And
see, they pulled those out just before people took pictures of them and, documented them and things like that, you see. They were thinking ahead. It was like, that's why I said they're covering up history as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And
this happened roughly in the mid to late 1990s and early 2000s, where they really started, for whatever reason, they started pulling up and covering up and and changing history. So
And so here I got one last thing, a couple last things actually, but this is causes and disappearances of ancient nations. Um, okay, but what has finally become one of the nation of these nations? Where are their descendants? Are questions which could be answered would be highly gratifying. On opening a mound between or below Wheeling on the Ohio, a few years since a stone was found having on it a brand exactly similar to the one commonly used by the Mexican nations in marking their cattle and horses. From this is evident that the ancient nations were not savages, or a trait of domestication of animals would not be found in the country they once inhabited. The head of the Susquehannawese or Mexican hog cut off square was found in a salt Petri cave in Kentucky not long since by Dr. Brown. This circumstance is mentioned by Dr. Drake in a picture of Cincinnati. The nitrate had preserved it and had been deposited there by an ancient inhabitants where it must have laid for ages. This animal is not found, it is said, north of the Mexican country, and the north line of which is about 40th degree of north latitude, and presumption of the inhabitants took these animals along with them and their migrations until they finally settled in Mexico. So, they're talking about an animal, they found it, and it's not where it's supposed to be. They found a brand, just like they find in Mexico, and it's, in the Ohio Valley, up,
Right.
So how did it get there? Does this mean there was intercommerce trade?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it had to be on such a big scale because, and the Indians, when the white man came to the Americas, those Indians were pretty territorial. And there wasn't like roads to get these places. You were traveling on footpaths. They didn't have the wagons and horses and stuff to go these roads. So it makes you wonder who was moving these things around and how this. If you were in Florida, how would you know to go up to Ohio to do some trading?
Very simple. They would go up what's called the Thigpen Trail, and it's 2 miles from my house. And it
Yeah.
starts down at St. Mark's and goes all the way up into Connecticut. Okay. And this
Mhm.
trail is ancient. Traders have been using the Thigpen Trail for a long time. And there are markers like it's a few miles from my house. Where they put up a marker that Thigpen Trail, blah blah blah, and then as Americans got here and so forth, they started using the trail as well. And
Mhm.
but there's a lot of history, of travel up and down the Thigpen. Ancient, long time now. And so my point about that is, when would you know? Well, so the strong warriors in the wintertime from the Cherokee and up in the Appalachians would go south and fish for snapper and all that down in the lowlands and in the panhandle area in St. Mark's. All the birds fly south and end up in these refugees down there, so they could fish for birds and all birds from all over the United States in one basic area. And so they used to grow rice down there way back in the day. There's still the rice works, but in the wintertime, the Braves would come south, do fishing, dry it out, and pack it north. And so the folks who couldn't travel, they stayed home, kept the home fires burning, kind of thing. So how did the old people eat? They brought them fish.
Mm-hmm.
They brought them all kinds of dried fish and stuff, and whatever. And also, they would go for oysters and get the freshwater pearls and so forth, you know, and mussels and things. So that's how things from down here got up there. But now, so they took things from down here, ended up there, and they traded with folks from up there. So it's obvious that, you know, from just local lore and what history we know around here is that's kind of thing's been going on for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And then whatever culture that was back in the day that built these mounds, they were all the thing is, I want to say that how do I want to say this to make it right? Is if we only found the mounds in one spot, we could say that that was, you know, that tribe, that area. Like if we found all the mounds in Florida, right? Or Georgia.
Or like Kolomoki, let's just use that. The Kolomoki Indians, they were the only ones that built a mound, and it was localized.
Maybe a few of the tribes around them in that area, but that's not the case because like here, this one's a good one. Historian uncovers Native American effigy mounds in Wisconsin. So, you know, way up in Wisconsin, they're building mounds. You know, there's mounds everywhere. The Serpent Mound, you know, there's mounds here discovered in the woods of Georgia, you know, another mound and a pillar or whatever it is. And burial mound, a group of former located. And then they always say, oh, Indian campsite. This is Wisconsin. You know, they were building mounds in Wisconsin, Ohio, Kentucky, Florida, Georgia. Basically, the whole east side from the Mississippi east was mounds. I mean, that together says a huge culture of people united in thinking the same way with the same, like a giant country would. Just like the United States, hey, we got roads, they go everywhere. We build skyscrapers on the East Coast, the West Coast, the middle of the country, everywhere. We're always building the same things. It's not like, oh, they built sky.
I can't hear you. Did you go mute? Well, there's an area of mounds, just looking at, you know, the mounds that I know of that extend sort of along the Apalachicola River and along the Flint River, going north into Georgia and headed into South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee corner up there. And there's not many mounds along the eastern in Georgia, and I think it's because it's just the wrong topography. It's just the wrong kind of dirt kind of stuff. But it looks like the mounds are more from central Georgia, we'll say, all the way to the other side of the Mississippi. There's a corridor of area where the mounds are mostly located.
Yeah, but they were saying they found mounds in New York, and they found mounds.
But there's anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Further inland than along the coast is my point.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I agree. That's the thing. And in order to have a culture that is inland, you need quite a network. Just like today, most of the people live along the coastline. Why? Because that's where the food is. That's where the trade is. And, you know, where's all the big cities? Along the coastline. The biggest cities we find along the coastline. But now you're saying, you know, here's the thing. You find these mounds, which would have been probably a city around there, or some kind of religious site, are in the center of the country, near no city, no giant ocean. You see what I'm saying? They're the wrong spot.
Yeah, but those ones that you showed up around St. Louis, back.
Yeah.
There's a big bunch of them up there. So, but they did have water. A lot of these were close to a waterway.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Kolomoki is not. It's not right against the Apalachicola, but it's not too far. So it's accessible, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they estimate Kolomoki had well over 1,000 people in the city, community, or whatever at the time. So also to give you just what they think the population was at the time, estimated, you know.
Yeah.
Now I'm using Kolomoki because I've been there several times and I've studied it over the years, and so I'm using that as a baseline. But there are these other mounds, though, that are just, you know, they want to say that the Kolomoki were all by themselves. They didn't have any influence from anywhere else, and I just think that's bull. Who taught them to build a damn?
No, I agree,
Who
but
taught them to build it? Who, you know, who influenced them? Somebody had to influence them, the Kolomoki, to build them mounds.
I agree, but then something happened. See, then the thing is something happened, and then they stopped building the mounds because now all of a sudden it says mourners bathe and dress their bodies in special garments. The mourners buried the deceased far away from the living areas, along with their possessions and their tools used to bury the body. If the deceased died in their hogan, which is their home, of tree and bark, family members burned it along with any remaining possessions. So basically, there's something wrong with it. So this is the Indian tradition of now. I mean, in the the modern day when white man came, and before that, they built giant mounds, which makes no sense. And of course, here we go with the giants. Giants. Now you were talking about the giants. Have the skeletons of giants ever been found in Ohio's ancient mounds? Is there evidence that various old world peoples came to America centuries before the Vikings arrived on the shores of Newfoundland? Let's consider the case, for we happen to have considerable relative evidence, and see what the light shines on these intriguing questions. A vocal archaeologist, Jeff Castidan and James Morton, have studied the archaeology of Muscombe County for more than 5 decades. Their recent book, Gold and Silver, Trinkets, and Other Valuable Articles, includes a detailed account of an excavation of Brush Creek Mound by John Everhart in the late 1800s. One of the objects recovered from the mound was a sandstone slab with several circular depressions that might have been used for cracking nuts. 2 months after the stone was unearthed, Everhart announced that it was also inscribed with hieroglyphics, chiefly Greek, commingled with Phoenician and Etruscan, as if they were amazing enough. He also claimed that the stone was buried along an 8-foot tall skeleton. And here is the stone that he found.
Oh, now, that's cool.
Yeah, go figure that one.
Wow.
See, and this is why I like old history, is because when you go to old history and you can dig it up, back in the day, they didn't cover the things up. But now if you found this in the backyard of your house today, if you would have went out back, dug into the ground, and pulled this up, there would be 20 guys from the FBI to Smithsonian Institute out there. They would take the stone away from you, take your camera, take your pictures. They would silence the news, and you would never see it again.
Yep.
And they would say, it's an Indian artifact, and we have to preserve it, and you're not entitled to it. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like the Indian artifacts I have under my stairs. Many, many, many years ago, like 35 years ago, I went over to Kolomoki Mounds when I bought my new Isuzu truck, and just rode over there for the day and walked along one of the paths behind the mound and almost off the property, and got off the path, and was going through this ravine and found this little stream coming down the side, and went to playing in the water and digging, and I found some ancient pottery. And then I went into the museum and I was like, oh, holy crap. I just, and it was in my truck, and I was afraid to say anything or give it to the park officials. So after all these years, I still have ancient pottery from, not on the mound or near the mound. It was way up in a ravine. And the several times I've been back there, I cannot find that ravine, but I still have the pottery. So, and it's, 1,500 years old.
Yeah. But that's exactly the whole point of this. Well, anyway, like I said, quite the interesting stuff we have, but nobody knows. They've hid it, disguised it. We can see it, like I said, with our own eyes, and that's the only way we're going to prove it. And that's the whole thing. That's why I said we need an army, and we have an army. All of you people out there are the army. Go to these places, check them out. Tell me what you think. If you can find a relic, maybe you find it in your backyard. Let's spread it around. Let's be that army that brings out the truth. And like I said, there's stuff still out there. We just haven't found it yet. And like I said, a lot of people find stuff, and the first thing they do is they call the cops. They call, somebody important, thinking, oh, I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to go in the news. And then somebody comes out, takes your stuff, and they say, well, you can't have that. That belongs to the Native Americans. And, and they don't get it. It goes somewhere else, disappears, and they go, we never heard of that. Nothing like that has ever happened. You never dug up anything. You have no proof.
Well, I do have proof of something here that happened literally between my neighbor and mine's house.
Yeah.
25 years ago, my neighbor up at the top of the hill was scraping the land with a backhoe, actually the front end of a backhoe, but to level it off to put his mother's trailer on, okay? And because it's on the top of the hill, and anyway, he was just scooping along, just grazing the top just to make it level. And all of a sudden, he hit this patch. And in this patch up there, he found 150 different arrowheads, spearheads, and all kinds of flint accoutrement. Okay, some of these blades are flawless and this long.
Wow.
Okay, and all grouped together in this one little spot. So he sold a few of them, but he still has most of them, like on a velvet background in a case, which, okay, that's good. But then when I was had a witch doctor, a medicine man here that stayed with me for almost a year, we were talking about this, and he said, "What? He found what? Where?" Right up over there. And I said, yeah. And he said that ancient customs were that they would put the chief or the whoever, usually a chief, would have this much stuff piled up, but they wouldn't bury it with him. All of the folks who were there would, the pile would be close to where they buried the person. So what I have dug around up there at the top of my hill, because supposedly our property line is right on where he scooped it up. So the chief is what we think is would have been buried on my property.
Yeah.
So, but the fact that he found 150 arrowheads and spearheads and so forth, like unmolested, and they were just buried all nice and neat. And he was like, it's just in this one spot. And we told him about it, and he was like, what? And he had some really bad incidents happened to him. It kind of sort of, don't mess with these folks. Quit selling them things. And when he quit selling any arrowheads or whatever, his luck changed, by the way. So they're still messing with him. He should have never messed with that stuff. But anyway. Yeah, and maybe one of these days I'll find the remains of the chief that would have been buried up there on the hill. In fact, it's the same place where I want to be buried, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. 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 That's all I can say. Interesting. See, that's what I'm saying. We got good things right in our own backyard, literally in your backyard. But,
well, it's more in my front yard, but yeah. Oh, and by the way, what I meant to say about that is that so that not in every burial mound in customs were they buried with all their possessions. Now he might have had personal belongings that he was buried with, but that all of the people, so there were at least 150 people there who gave a piece of themselves in the form of an arrowhead or spearhead or whatever, to be, but that was beside or near where the chief was buried. But one thing we're not sure of is how old the burial site is and whether they cremated him or buried him or what. So, but I have poked around up there at the top of the hill, but I haven't found anything that resembles human remains.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing.
But with the mounds and everything, this is my point. I keep skipping over. If you find arrowheads and things off to the side, that explains how important the person was. Because those were gifts from the people offering, like here, I'm giving my best spearhead. He was a great chief, and this is to honor him, and they put it next to him. But anyway, okay, I'm done.
All right. Okay. So let's see. Gotta get back here. Okay, we're ready for you for that's my presentation. We're all ready for your stuff now, I guess. I went a little long, but anyway, I'm just trying to catch all these people. Everybody's got good stories. The Walla Wallas are one of the helps. Okay. Wow. Okay, cool. See, I learned so much stuff from you people. I write this stuff down, I look at it up, and I study on it all week long.
It was interesting that I learned this stuff 20 years ago about what's up there at the top of the hill on my own property, by learning this thing, and then by having the medicine man stay with me and him knowing, inside information. He's like, no, man, there's somebody buried up there, dude, all those blades and everything. So the fact that somehow there's I bought a place that there's history right on the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting, but with knowledge that, oh wow, how they buried him or other folks around here, and the knowledge that I gained, it's like, well, that's sort of inside knowledge as to how they did their burials, versus what the archaeologists say. This was from a medicine man, who's been taught this, and
See, that's the thing. Who do you believe? This the scientist guy who says, I do this for a living, and I don't need the information from the direct descendants of the Indian tribe. I can tell you what they were doing by the junk I find in the ground. And it's like,
right.
Wait a minute. These guys been doing the same thing for hundreds of years as a tradition, and you're telling me that no, they didn't really do that.
So let's consider, why did they stop? Well, where did the giants go? But, let's think about thousands of years ago. What was going on? And I would consider that the same sort of thing was going on in North America with the mound building that was similarly going on in the Yucatan. But similarly, and what was the influence of that? Who said build these great big temples? Who started that? Who started the mound builders in North America? I think they were influenced basically by the same race, culture, or whatever to build these monuments made out of dirt or stone or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think they were related.
Yeah, I do. I totally agree with that. Yeah, Scotty Boy knows how to find Kava Kava by Lowell Hawaiians. And Susie Q says it was climate change. It probably was some sort of version of climate change. But gee, they didn't have factories back then. What the heck? Maybe they did, and that's what caused it all. They had giant factories, and they just all eroded from the acid rain that came down, and that's why we can't find them anymore.
Well, here, consider this as I wrap this part up here. Consider this. What if it was a race of big people, okay? Not necessarily giants, but just big people. They were 10, 12 foot tall. But there were giants that were much taller. So I would put those folks in a different category. Yeah. The really big dudes, Mm-hmm. But so what if, however they got here, however long they lived, which was supposedly they lived a long time, but that what if they just didn't have any females and whatever happened, they could not progenerate their race?
Yes.
And, and it literally just ran out.
Well, I did several shows on that where I almost I read bunches of books, like the Book of Giants I read with Isby, and we talked about King Og, and he said basically the problem is you have all these giants, they're all old, and nobody could reproduce, and here's the part that really got me was they were killing and eating the animals. And the animals were dying out, and they couldn't reproduce either. So that tells me something was going on, that nobody was reproducing. And what you had is what you got, and they ate up all the animals, and they had to start eating the sea animals because, and they couldn't reproduce. Remember, they were talking about the moon child. Oh boy, we had a girl. And that a girl means that maybe she could have children, right? And they were fighting over her. That was the whole point of the story, right?
Oh, I don't know. I have not read it, so.
Oh yeah, well,
I missed it, but yeah.
We read the book, and then they talked about all this stuff, and they said, hey, we had this kid, and she's a girl, and both giant races were fighting over this girl, and eventually, what happens? They killed the girl by accident. Yep. And then they were like, well, we're going to war because of this, and basically killed themselves off in the end. Nobody's winning. You're not winning a war if nobody can reproduce. You're all dying anyway. That's what it boils down to.
Well, and if you take that to where all the animals were gone kind of thing, but remember about the stories that, we've told, the legends and so forth, of the giants who are the man-eaters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And, who were the man-eaters? They were the giants. And so, and then different peoples and different stories, they went and killed the man-eaters. They didn't call them giants, but that's what they were. So, yeah. But anyway, so I listened to a story today from the Choctaw in the 1800s that when they got moved up into southern Oklahoma, near the Ouachita Mountains on the edge of Arkansas there, that they had arguments with Bigfoot. that they literally had these huge, giant, beasties that carried off women and children, mostly because they were the most vulnerable. And, they found them in pieces and, stacked up and stuff in the giant Bigfoot camp. And they killed them all,
Yep. Yeah, I heard that one too. I did. I listened to that same one. And yeah, that was terrible. They said that they got there and they were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, yeah. So anyway, I know the story exactly. Okay, speaking of stories, let's move on to the stories. We got stories.
I just want to say that I've been in the Ozarks in the wilderness, and I've also been in the Ouachita Mountains in western Arkansas. And to this day, there are still some woolly booger places in the national forest over there. But there are still some woolly booger places there that only the locals know about, by the way, caves and things and stuff. And I found a stone flint, some type of scraper that fits in the palm of your hand. And I mean, when you put it and fit it, it fits just right in the palm of your hand. And I found it, in a creek bed up there in northern Arkansas. So, the ancient folks had all kinds of stone tools and things. They weren't stupid by any stretch. But anyway, on to the stories.
Yep.
See, now what I've been talking about, some of this stuff is personally going to someplace and visiting it. So you want to experience history, go someplace, and go see what it's like. So anyway, then learn for yourself.
Yep. That is true. Learn for yourself. Go places. They have these places for a reason. Go check them out. Experience the world around you.
Yeah, it's like the Indian the Serpent Mound in Ohio.
Yeah.
That old gentleman and I that was standing there looking at it, we looked at each other and said, where did they get the dirt? It was like, so other people were like, what it says on the sign just don't make sense. Man, none of us believed what they had on this sign, at Serpent Mound. And we were all having this conversation out there in the parking lot. So, when you go and experience these things personally, and then you can really make up your own mind. Do you think that what's on that plaque is really what happened here?
The plaque is there to give you a simple explanation so you don't question the narrative.
Absolutely. So, but that's the other reason for going and visiting some of these places. You can look at them and go, man, I don't believe that mess. Anyway,
that's
so
right.
Our story for tonight is called A Dead Man Speaks Through Fire, as told by Henry Jacob. Now, we are still on the Seneca Indian myths and legends. So, this story, as I pre-read it earlier today, has aspects of it in story that we probably read, 3 months ago. Not the same, but similar. But Nagawahi, the Ancient of Bears, and Dezagio, the Little People. So think about that for a minute. So, a dead man speaks through fire. A woman and her son lived in one house, a brother and sister in another. The old woman's son and the brother looked alike, were the same height, and could scarcely be told apart. They were great friends. The old woman's son often visited the brother and sister, but when the brother found that his friend thought of marrying his sister when she was old enough, she was very young, He was displeased, and the next time the young man came to the house, he killed him, dug a hole under the fireplace, put the body into it, filled the hole with earth, and built a fire. The mother waited for her son, and when he didn't come, she went to the other house and asked, "Where is my son?" He just started for home. Maybe he is in the woods. He was going to cut twigs for arrows," answered the young man. When the woman started for home, he ran out, cut wood quickly, hurried to her house, sat down, and began to whittle out arrows. When she came in, he asked, "Where have you been, mother?" "I've been at your friend's house." "Well," said he, "I am going over there a little while." He put away the arrows, ran home, and said, "My sister, I am afraid that we are going to die. Hurry to the spring. Leave your pail there. Run in every direction and then come back to the house." The girl went to the spring, covered the ground with tracks, and came back. Then the brother said, "I'll put you in the head of my arrow and send you off." He shook the girl till she became very small, then put her in the head of his arrow and said, "I will shoot you toward the east. When the arrow strikes the ground, jump out and run. I'll overtake you." He shot the arrow up through the smoke hole. It came down on a stone far off in the east. The arrow burst and the girl came out and began to run as fast as she could. The young man ran around in circles, made many tracks, then stood on top of the house. There was a long line across the sky, the trail the arrow had made. He ran off under his trail, came to the spot where the arrow struck the stone, then followed his sister's tracks. The woman got tired of waiting for her son and went over to see what he was doing. The house was empty. She sat by the fire, then a voice spoke out of the fire and said, "My friend killed me! My friend killed me!" The woman dug down and found her son's body. She went home, became a Nagawahi, and followed the girl's tracks to the spring. Followed them till she was at the house again. Then she looked through the smoke hole, saw in the sky the trail of the arrow, and hurrying out, ran toward the east. The young man overtook his sister before she was far from the stone. Then they ran on together. After a time, they heard a bear roar. The girl trembled and grew weak, but her brother encouraged her. At night, they lay down by a tree and slept a little. The young man dreamed that a woman came to him and said, "There is a stone to defend yourself with. Tomorrow, about midday, throw this stone behind you and say, 'Let there be a ridge of rocks across the world so high that nothing can climb over or pass it.'" In the morning, the young man saw at his side the very stone he had seen in his dream. He took the stone with him. Before midday, he heard a bear roar. The young man threw the stone behind him, and that minute a ridge of rocks stretched across the world. The ridge was so high that no living creature could climb it. The bear came to the ridge and saw that the tracks she was following went farther. She clambered up and fell back. Howling terribly, she said, I'll overtake and eat them both. She ran toward the north, could find no end or opening. Then she went back and ran toward the south, and finding no opening, went back and lay down near the tracks. The next morning she found only a small stone in her way. She ground it to powder and went on. The brother and sister had gone far, but at midday they heard the bear roar and knew she was coming. They reached a great forest. The trees were dried up and leafless. They saw a house and going in, found an old man sitting by the fire. They told him their trouble, and he said, I will help you, but you have another uncle not far from here. He will help you more than I can. The old man was chipping flint. When he had a handful of chips, he flung it at the trees, and in this way he had killed all the trees in the forest. He had great witchcraft. The brother and sister went on. The old man had a heap of flint chips piled up near him. When he heard the bear coming, he threw a handful after handful of the chips at her, but she didn't turn away. She came to the door and asked, Have you seen a young man and a girl? I have not, said he. I pay no heed to persons who pass. The bear seized the old man by the head, crushed him, and killed him. Then she saw tracks, and knowing that the brother and sister had gone on ahead, she roared and rushed on. When they came to the second uncle, he said, I will help you all I can, but hurry on till you come to the house of another uncle. He made a trap on the trail. Near that a second trap, and then a third one. When the bear came, she rushed into the first trap. After a long struggle, she broke through and then got into the second trap, and only got out of that to fall into the third one. When she got out of the third trap, she went to the old man and asked, Have you seen a young man and a girl pass? I have not. The bear seized the old man and tore him to pieces with her teeth. When the brother and sister came to the third uncle, he was making a net. His eyes were closed and his eyelids hung on his cheeks. When they called to him, he didn't hear them. They called again. He kept at work. When his nephew got a pounder and hit him on the head, he raised his eyebrows and said, I hear a voice. A great bear is following us, said the young man. I will help you all I can, said the uncle. But your grandfather lives in the next house. Run to him. He can help you more than I can. When the bear was near, the old man put up a long net on the trail. She was caught in the net, but she struggled and bit till at last she freed herself. Then going to the old man, she asked, Have you seen a young man and a girl pass this way? I have not, said he. When the brother and sister came to their grandfather's house, they found Shadagoiko, the wind people, there. These people wore heavy shells. When they saw the brother and sister, they told them to go on till they came to the next house, that the people there were very strong, possessed great witchcraft, and could help them. The bear came and after a hard fight, killed the wind people. When the brother and sister reached the next house, an old Diziogio woman sat in front of it. She told them to go in. She would kill the bear. She had a deal of bear fat. She told her 3 sons to make 2 fires on the tracks of the brother and sister, put a kettle over each fire, and fill the kettles with fat. When the fat was boiling, the brothers gathered red willows and made arrows. The woman stood near the first kettle. The bear came rushing along and asked, "Are the 2 here whose tracks these are?" "They are here," said she. "They are in the house." The bear started to go around the kettles, but the woman said, "You mustn't go that way. Those who came before you went through the fire. You must do as they did." The bear started, overturned the first kettle, got her paws burned, and fell back growling. She made for the second kettle, overturned that, and was burned still worse. Then the boys killed her with their red willow arrows and burned her bones to powder so she couldn't come back to life. The Dosiago woman told the brother and sister to stay with her till they were rested. Then her sons would go home with them. They started, and the Dosiago boys traveled with them 2 days. Then, telling them how to get home, they turned back. Peter White said the bear's woman's son had a tuft of yellow hair hanging down his back from the crown of his head. That when he was killed by his friend, the friend cut off that tuft of hair and fastened it to the top of his own head. When the bear woman's son was hunting, he could send his arrows home. They would go into the house and to the place where they belonged. After the friend had the tuft of hair, his arrows would go home in the same way. The strength was in the tuft of hair. The end. And thus for the story for tonight. I found that interesting.
Yes, yes, it
And
was.
it was similar to one we've read a long time ago, because I remember something about, there was more about the digging up the bones at the fireplace. It was like they went back and there was all this running and going to a different uncle's houses. I don't remember that part, but I do remember that, in one of the stories earlier on, the son was buried under the fireplace. I remember that. So, but anyway, so similarities in many of these stories we've read over the last year and a half, 2 years, just in the Seneca stories.
Yes, I agree. Well, we got a card for tonight.
Yeah, I'm a little late with it because we've been yakking. So y'all think of something right now. I had been, pulling cards earlier, but I'm in the process of shuffling cards. So whatever is all on y'all's mind out there tonight, or, any messages you think you need, be thinking about them, and I'll see what comes up with the cards. It's raining in South Georgia at the moment.
No rain here. It's still cold. Today was like, I woke up, it was 13 below.
Oh, no way. Really? Wow.
Yes, it was. And by, what is it, Thursday or Friday, it's supposed to be up to 50. So big change, swing in the weather. It's going to be crazy. So there you go. But you got to figure out, spring is a difficult time of year. It is. Chloe says that there's a big comet headed our way. Did y'all hear the comet that's to appear April 8th? Has a tail that's 500 million miles long. Like, What the? You know what? Hmm. Wow.
WTF.
Yeah.
And there are other celestial things going on too. So, this is an interesting time. Plus, we got the eclipse coming on the 18th, I think.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on the eclipse? Any big happenings or nothing at all?
Now, I think there are people who want to do things to make it look like something, okay?
Yeah.
But, there have been eclipses going on, since the moon was brought here. So, I don't think there's going to be anything. If something goes on, I'll be greatly surprised. I mean,
Well,
greatly surprised.
that's the feeling I have is I think it's just another eclipse that's going to come and go. And if there is something to happen, it's going to be a man who makes it happen. It's not going to come from the celestial bodies flying around in the heavens. It's going to be because men made things happen to wreck our lives, to change the way we view the world. Put it that way.
Well, now I could say that, ET could have a hand in it to try to make something out of it. Like, what if they wanted to do a fake alien invasion kind of thing, or a real alien invasion? But anyway, let's get to the cards here. So, Mountain Lion upside down. Number 17 in the book. Mountain lion, O kingly leader of sleek and feline form, touch my heart with courage and then sound the alarm, that I may lead with foresight, assurance bright and true, to carry on the spirit of the strength I see in you. Mountain lion is leadership. Okay, mountain lion can be a very difficult power totem for you to have because it places you in a position to be a target for the problems of others. You could be blamed for things going wrong or for always taking charge when others cannot. You could become the perfect justification for the insecurities of others. Mountain lion medicine involves lessons on the use of power in leadership. It is the ability to lead without insisting that others follow. It is the understanding that all beings are potential leaders in their own way. The use and abuse of power in a position of influence are part of this great cat's medicine. Now, upside down in the contrary. If your mountain lion card is reversed, you may be playing with fire. A leader who tries to lead through tyranny or dictatorship has forgotten the medicine of truth. The medicine of truth. Through the reversal of this medicine, you may be tricked into believing that nothing else has validity except the ideas created by yourself. Watch out. Rome crumbled for this very reason. If this aspect of the contrary medicine does not apply to your situation, look at other messages which Mountain Lion brings. If you are avoiding taking your place of leadership, it could be because the whole idea scares you silly. In other words, if you should be a leader or stand up for something and you don't, it could be that you're just scared silly. This is a medicine state of affairs. Wait, this is a normal state of affairs for one who has never been a leader before. In this instant, it is necessary to call upon the courage of the lion and to begin by learning the lessons of the lion-hearted. Another message of Mountain Lion reversed is to not let yourself be led down the primrose path by a leader who is abusing power. That's a biggie. We got a bunch of folks abusing power. If you want to put yourself on the road to being a leader in your own right, ask questions of anyone to whom you have given authority. See if they carry the medicine of mountain lion and whether you can grow into your own leadership by observing how they handle the task of setting examples. Now, the next card I pulled, there's 3 of them tonight, is Hummingbird, number 44. And it seems like the Hummingbird keeps coming up here and there. And the last one is Whale, which is number 41, but it's upside down. Hummingbird is right side up. I'll be there in a second. Hummingbird is joy. Hummingbird, joyful little sister, nectar that you crave. All the sweetness of the flowers is the love you have gave. Hummingbird is associated with the ghost shirt religion, which taught that a certain dance done properly would bring about the return of the animals, and that white people would disappear. Once again, the original people would know the joy of the old ways. In Mayan teachings, the hummingbird is connected to the black sun and the 5th world. Hummingbird can give us the medicine to solve the riddle of the contradiction of duality. The song of Hummingbird awakens the medicine flowers. Hummer sings a vibration of pure joy. Flowers love Hummingbird because nectar sucking brings about the reproduction of their families. Plants flower and live because of Hummingbird. If Hummingbird is in your personal medicine, you love life and its joys. Your presence brings joys to others. You join people together in relationships which bring out the best in them. Turn the page. Hummingbird hears celestial music and is in harmony with it. Hummingbird may invite you to an art museum or a concert. Hummingbird energetically embraces the highest aesthetics. Never be coarse in front of Hummingbird, for this is a fragile medicine which may have no understanding of worldly affairs. Beauty is the target, and Hummingbird's mission is to spread joy or be destroyed. Hummingbird quickly dies if caught, caged, or imprisoned. Follow Sister Hummingbird, and you will be filled with paroxysms of joy and experience a renewal of the magic of living. And now Whale is the 3rd. So, that's with all the confusion and chaos going on, there's so many people that just, they're not happy with life and they don't want to live, And we got to, like you were talking about earlier, find something to go explore. Now, the last card is Whale, the record keeper, and it's upside down. Whale of mighty oceans, you have seen it all. Secrets of the ages heard within your call. Teach me how to hear your words and how to understand the very roots of history of when our world began. Whale is the record keeper. Whale is very much like a swimming library. Whale carries the history of Mother Earth and is said to have been placed here by the ancients from the dog star Sirius. Now, we talked about the ancients of maybe the people who, were the mound builders kind of thing. So there's history of the ancients, okay? So, but, what did they do? Well, they brought the whale. So what else did they do? But anyway, biologists say that whale is a mammal and very possibly lived on land millions of years ago. In tribal legend, whales move into the ocean happened when Earth shifted. There goes our Earth shifting we talked about earlier, and Lemuria, the motherland, which went below the waves. All of our petroglyphs speak of the motherland, Mu, and the disaster that brought the red race to North America from the west beyond the great waves. The symbols in the petroglyphs speak of the rivers and mountains crossed by our ancestors when they sought solid ground as the water receded. So whale is the record keeper. If whale has breached itself, this is contrary. If whale has breached itself in your cards, the contrary medicine implies that you are not following your sonar or your own homing device. On some level, you have forgotten that you hold all the answers. You hold all the answers you need to survive and to grow and to claim the power of your chosen destiny. You have the power. On some level, you have forgotten that you hold all the answers. It may be that you are having to deal with a lot of chatter in your head and cannot get to your personal records. If so, you may need to use other sounds to enter the silence. The drum or rattle, the Indian flute, or the sounds of nature may help. The call of whale is the lullaby of the tides. Rock yourself gently and float into the world of the sea. Flow with the waters of time and collect your answers. Your answers. They are the only truth that will lead to your personal pathway of knowing. I've talked about the Akashic records over the years, and everybody thinks that there's one great big Akashic record that fits everybody. That's not true. We each have our own personal Akashic records, and that's what this is talking about. Contrary whale is saying that you must desire to know. How bad do you want to know? You must seek the whale song within you. In hearing whales call, you will connect to the ancients on a cellular level. In other words, in the great quantum. And then as you relax into the flow of the song's rhythm, you will begin to open your unique library of records. It may not come all at once. It may take practice, and it will come at different times. But if you hold the desire to know close to your heart, it will be the whale's gift to you. Look to the great star nation and send gratitude to Sirius for the song of the whale. Thus spoke the book for tonight. And to the creator and energies that helped me pick the cards. So I hope that made some sense to any of y'all out there.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going in your heart,
Go whale watching, but there's no whales in the middle of the country.
No, they don't go up and down the Mississippi much, That'd be about the closest you could get to them in your area.
Well, we got Slightly Slanted Sleuth for the Truth Steve's in the house. Thank you for coming. Good to see you.
Could you imagine being in, say, St. Louis, and somebody comes on the radio and goes, "Whales are spotted in the Mississippi River." What?
Yeah.
That'd be a trip.
Let's see. Here, anyway, Mark the Spark Arc says, "Good reading." Susie Q says, "Thank you, Robert and David. Thank you." Lady Spitfire says, "Very awesome." David Null, thank you. Good cards. Mark the Spark says good cards.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. And Scotty Boy says sharks do go up the Mississippi. These two all. The whale in Mississippi River. Well, whale beached along the Mississippi River. Pygmy killer whale rescue. No. Whale found on Mississippi beach. I'm trying to see if there has ever been that. You know, don't ever say never when you never know.
Yep. I could see where maybe a dolphin would make it up the river.
Let's see. Whale washes up ashore in Mississippi. Nope, that's not it either. Nope. But yeah, you know, things like that sometimes happen. But see, you can't take a saltwater animal and put it in fresh water because they will dry up like a. I mean, they're used to the salt water. You can't. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. There's been some saltwater fish that go up a certain way up in the rivers where it's brackish, you know, but for those folks who don't live around brackish waters, you don't know that kind of stuff. But anyway.
Yeah. But, you know, it does. I think weird things like that happen, but they don't last very long.
Nope.
Let's see. Newly discovered whale. It's too late for mysterious newly discovered whale. What happens to whale found? I'm trying to look. Whale spotted. Young whale who stranded in the tide. No, just dead whales. Dead dolphins found around Mississippi. That's the thing. They get up in there and then they just die. Humpback whale.
Mississippi, the state of Mississippi has beaches. So do they mean the Mississippi River or the state of Mississippi along the beach?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to find. I'm just reading headlines.
It would make sense that that a whale beached itself on on the beach of in Mississippi.
Yeah, it says here's one that says humpback whale baffles scientists after returning to Kakadu River. I don't know where that is. Humpback whale found in river leading to Great Lakes. That's about as close as I can find anything about Great Lakes. Humpback whale that stole the hearts of Montrealers when it spent time in one of the city's ports, far from its original habitat, was found dead in the St. Lawrence River on Tuesday. And see, so that's the point. They get up in a river and then they die because they don't belong there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Christy says, I'm from Mississippi and I've heard of that all my life. There you go.
What, a whale's in the Mississippi or on the beach?
I don't know. She didn't elaborate.
Right, but that's why I'm asking. Maybe she'll put it in.
It is. Oh, she says it isn't uncommon to find them dead on the beach. Yeah. That's because when they get up into that fresh water, the fresh water literally. I read about this once, and they dry up. They something because their skin or something, and they need that salt water, and then all of a sudden they get in the fresh water and it literally sucks all the stuff right out of them. They dry up and then they die. They basically die of lack of water. How weird is that?
Dehydration.
That's what I'm trying to say. Swept into the river during hurricanes. Yes. And they The thing is if they get swept in there and they don't get out soon enough, they can survive for a little while, but not very long.
Yeah, and there's no food for them in the Mississippi either.
Yep, that's true. So anyway, good stories, good cards. I hope everybody enjoyed that. We're just over 4 minutes after 2 hours, so we're gonna cut this off. But I hope everybody has really had a good time. Remember, what's the most important thing? Go out and have your own adventure. Go out, check out these burial mounds. We got so much history in our own backyards. Send me some pictures. Tell me your story.
And don't be afraid to go out and check something out. I know some folks and they're like, well, I don't know, I'm bored all the time. Well, do you have something that's like a short drive away that you could go visit? Come on, go on an adventure. You don't have to go backpacking through the Appalachians, but you could go, to someplace a couple hours drive away. Like for me, it's about 2 hours over to Milky, which ain't bad, but they got camping and fishing and other stuff too. So, but then you got the museum and the mounds. So in other places like Etowah Mounds and other places in middle Georgia, they got places where you can walk around and park and picnic or whatever and visit. So, but don't be chicken to go, go ahead and have an adventure.
Yeah, that's right. They want to know if you're going to have a show.
Yeah, a little one later on. Yes. Yeah, it's Tuesday night. Well, it's Wednesday morning now, but
That's right. Give him a few minutes to get a cup of coffee and let Duggar out, and he'll be right on.
Yeah,
we'll be to go. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to head off to bed myself and call it a night. And for all you watching later, thanks for watching all the way to the end. And with that,
thank you, Robert.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you. If without you people and without you, David, the show wouldn't be what it is. And we get better and better all the time, don't we? And we find out all these. That's right. I love it. Well, thank you, everybody, so much. With that, remember, go out and do something nice for your neighbor, your friends, something. Make their day. Give them a smile, a handshake. If nothing else, do something nice that'll benefit somebody else, and it will come back to you. Karma. Remember, be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.